Alright, welcome back to the First-Time Homebuyer Survival Series. I'm starting to realize that is a bit of a mouthful, but this is part 21, so it's too late to change that. Alright, so in the last video, we broke down the offer process, how to write one, how to figure out what price you're going to offer, conditions, and so on. We've gotten our offer accepted, and now it's time to talk about the home inspection. Now, if you didn't include a home inspection condition in your offer, then this step doesn't really apply to you. But again, we always recommend that you do include a home inspection. It is there to protect your best interests. There are situations in which it might be beneficial to not include one if you're dealing with multiple offers and it's very competitive, but again, it's still always recommended that you include one. It's there to protect you and your best interests, and if you don't include one, then you are taking on some risk because you're essentially just buying the home as is if you don't put the home inspection in there, and you don't really know what's happening under the surface. So for most first-time home buyers, it makes sense, and I'd recommend that you put this condition in your offer. It gives you a chance to find the issues that you didn't see during the showing. So what exactly is a home inspection? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a professional review of the property's condition. So the inspector is going to go through and inspect the home top to bottom. They're going to look at all the major systems and the structure. They're going to look at things like the roof, the foundation, the electrical systems, the plumbing, heating, cooling. They're going to look at the walls, the floors, the ceilings, all that fun stuff. Now, they're not there to tell you whether you should or should not buy the house. It's very rarely that they make a recommendation. What they're there to do is to give you information so that you can make a smart decision yourself. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that I am also not a home inspector, so I'm not going to get super technical in this video. We're going to keep it general. I'm going to tell you roughly what to expect from this process and how to interpret what comes next. To speak generally, they're looking for any red flags with the home, any safety issues, or anything that could turn into a major expense in the near future. One thing worth knowing is that home inspectors in Ontario aren't provincially licensed, but many are certified through professional associations, so you just want to double check that who you get for a home inspector is insured. Now, a typical home inspection usually takes around 2 hours. It can sometimes take more. It'll depend on the size of the home. A condo might take a little bit less, maybe an hour, but a larger home can be up to 3 hours, maybe even more than that. So it really will depend. It also will depend on the age of the home as well. If there's more stuff for them to look at, more potential issues, they're gonna be there for a little bit longer. So once your offer gets accepted, you usually have a short conditional period. It's typically about 5 business days, but that period is negotiable. We'll say 5 business days for the sake of this video, and that means that you need to book the inspection as soon as possible. So you do also want to consider that when you're putting your offer in and the timeline that you're going to have, that most likely it's going to have to be booked during the week when the inspector is on. You don't want to be doing it on the weekend. It's going to be harder to find somebody. Not impossible, but it will be harder. So you want to factor that in when you're putting your offer in. Again, your agent will walk you through this. When it comes to finding an inspector, most buyers will ask their agent for a recommendation. You can also find somebody online, but typically the easiest path for you is to just ask your agent who they've worked with in the past and who they'd recommend to you. If you do end up looking online, just make sure the person you find is experienced and has good reviews and that they're licensed. Now, when it comes to cost, this is a cost that you as the buyer will have to incur. In Ontario, you can generally expect to pay anywhere from $400 to $600 for a standard home inspection. That will depend on the size of the home, how old it is. If it's a very large home or it's a lot older, there's a lot more stuff to look at, then it might end up costing a little bit more, but the $400 to $600 range for a standard home is a safe bet. Now, they will often offer additional tests for things that are a little bit more complex, like radon, mold, or anything like that, and you can include those, but it typically tends to be an extra fee. Now, once the inspection is done, the inspector will send you a written report outlining what they found in the home. Now, this is very important. No home is perfect. Even brand new homes can have issues, so don't panic if the report looks a little bit too long or it has a lot of notes on it. That's completely normal. Again, they're going through the home with a fine-tooth comb and they're looking for every possible issue, even the little ones, because their job is to give you as much information as you can possibly have in order to make the most informed decision that you can. So what matters is the nature of the issues that are found, not necessarily the number of them. A lot of the inspection findings are things like maintenance items or potential future considerations. happens. I once had a client who bought a condo, and the inspector said that the current electrical panel might not have the capacity to service the entire condo based on what he wants to do with it. So he said that might be something you want to look into upgrading in the future if you plan on running a lot of modern appliances. It was a little bit of an older condo. The woman living there before was older. She didn't have as much stuff that she had plugged in, and this was a younger guy who had a computer. He had an air fryer, microwave, a bunch of more modern stuff that takes up a lot more electricity. So that was something that the home inspector recommended. It's not necessarily something that's a giant expense, and it's not necessarily something that has to be done right away either, and it doesn't make the home unlivable or unsafe. It's just something that's good information to have. You also might see some things like some minor moisture behind a basement wall, worn shingles, or some aging mechanical systems. Often these aren't immediate problems, but they are things to be aware of that you might have to be dealing with at some point in the future. Older homes in particular tend to have more of these latent issues just because of age. That doesn't make the home bad. It just means that you need to understand what you're getting yourself into. All right, so once you have the report, you generally have three options. Option one is you're comfortable with the results, you waive the home inspection condition, the deal goes firm, and you proceed with buying it. Option two, the inspection reveals some issues that are more serious or more expensive than you had expected, and then in that case, you would go back to the seller to renegotiate. So typically in this situation, you might ask for a price reduction, or you might ask the seller to address certain issues before closing, and this is where the inspection can give you this leverage. You can't be unreasonable here, but it does open the door to a fair conversation. And then option three, which doesn't happen too often, but it does happen, and this is what the home inspection is there for. The inspection reveals problems that you are not willing to take on, and in that case, you can walk away entirely and get your full deposit back without deductions. That's exactly why the condition exists, because if you bought the home without the condition and you realize that you didn't want to deal with all this, well, now you're stuck with it. Now you have to, or you have to worry about now selling the home and trying to get much less than you paid for it. All right, so that's pretty much all I have to say about home inspections. If you want more details about what is happening specifically during it, you're going to have to talk to a licensed home inspector. But the general idea of the home inspection is not to ensure the house is perfect. There's pretty much always going to be a list of issues. It's about determining whether those issues are worth dealing with, and there's most likely going to be a bunch of really minor ones in every home. It's completely fine. It's completely normal, so don't worry too much about that. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you want the PDF version of the First-Time Homebuyer Survival Guide, that will be down in the description. And again, if you have any questions at all about anything in the home buying process, feel free to reach out to me. My contact info is also down in the description. All right, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.